you never look so good.
Hello and welcome. Today's project, necklaces made with glass beads and felted beads. I thought of this idea when I found myself doing a lot of Zoom calls in lockdown. And when people are only seeing you from here up, it's nice to be wearing a statement necklace so that you look kind of well put together. This is what you need for the felted bead necklaces. You need some wool roving. You need some lovely beads, of course. You need something to string your beads on. You can use dental floss, you can use stretchy beading cord, or you can use DMC floss. You'll need a beading needle. I recommend the kind that has a collapsible eye so that they're easy to thread. And you'll also need a little dot of dish soap, a little dot of super glue to secure your necklaces, and this tool. This is a beading needle. It's very sharp. You do have to take care when you're using it. But I find the process of making these felted beads really quite therapeutic. Let's get started. The first thing we need to do is pull off a hank of our roving. This is what it looks like when it comes out of the bag. And you never really have to cut this. You just grasp the fibers from the top and pull off what you need. And it depends on how big you want your bead to be. That should be enough to start with. Then you start forming the sphere. And what you're trying to do here is get all the fibers to entangle and move through each other and hold together. So we start pressing quite firmly with our fingers as we roll and form the ball. And then I'll start using the felting needle. Remove the protective cap. Now remember, this is very sharp. Keep your fingers well away. And this barbed needle starts pushing the fibers and intertwining them, pushing them deeper into the ball and intertwining them. And each bead is going to take you probably at least 5 minutes because you'll do a little work with the needle, you'll roll a little bit more, go back to the needle, roll a little bit more. They won't be perfect by the time you're finished, but they'll be holding together and they'll be ready for the next step, which is wet felting. I'm working on an old towel with a newspaper or magazine underneath to protect my work surface. It helps when you get towards the end to thin out the fibers and draw them over the whole bead. That will really help keep it together too. So now I have quite a bit of needlework to do, probably several minutes to get this bead to hang together. This is the therapeutic part of this craft. Some people can do this when they're watching TV. What you can also do to coax the fibers together is to start to roll in your hands, gently at first, because you don't want to flatten your bead. You want it to stay round. But as you move along, you can apply more pressure. When you're sizing for your beads, I find it helpful to keep some coins out so that I can refer to them. These were quarter-sized starting out, but after the wet felting, you can see that the sphere is quite compacted. You can use quarter size, nickel size, dime size. It depends on the type of necklace you'd like. And eventually, after several minutes of this, you end up with a ball that's ready to proceed to the next job, and that is wet felting. I like a takeout container for this part of the job because they tend to be watertight, but you could use any plastic container that has a lid. You put your partially felted balls in and you add a little bit of water, very hot water, to which you've added just a drop of dish soap. That helps the felting process. And you don't need a lot of water, just basically drops on each ball. Some people actually just dip the balls in. And now you begin the wet felting. Make sure that your container is sealed and start rolling. And this encourages the fibers to intermesh and interlock. Don't just shake up and down. That will flatten your spheres. You want to roll them, basically. And it usually takes a few minutes, and you're going to want to open every now and then to check and see the progress. So sometimes you may notice as the felting proceeds that you're developing little cracks in the balls. And this is fairly easily remedied. You can just take a little bit more of the roving and try and lay it into that crack. You can also use your felting needle to secure it to go back into the wet felting container. And at this point, you can also marble some of your beads if you'd like. That's what I did for the ones on my necklace that I'm wearing. That's a marbling effect. And what I did for that is I took a white bead and I laid just little wisps of the blue felting roving over top. Doesn't have to be a lot, and you want it to be irregular. And again, a few pokes with your felting needle will hold it in place so that it can go back into the container. And more rolling around. Like I said, takes a few minutes. You'll notice as you check periodically that the texture of the balls changes. They become a lot firmer and there's fewer little loose wispy bits of the roving. So when they're as firm as you like for your beads, you take them out and rinse them in cold water. You're just trying to get the soap out at this point. And then I lay them on just a baking rack from my kitchen because they have to dry thoroughly before you make your necklace. So that's going to take a day or two. It's in assembling your beaded necklace that the collapsible beading needle really comes in handy. And that's because a lot of the time it's very difficult to get dental floss or stretchy bead cord or DMC floss through the head of an ordinary beading needle. It's just too small. So with the collapsible one, you'll be able to get it in no problem. And then it's very easy simply to thread your seed beads and your felted beads on. You'll have no problem getting through the felted beads. They're still quite soft. The biggest task really is making sure that the needle is going in centered so that the bead hangs correctly. Now, in terms of length, I wanted to make these necklaces without jewelry findings or a clasp at the back. So I made sure that I made them long enough so that they could fit over my head without having to be undone. So I cut, in this case, my floss at 60 inches and doubled it because 30 inches is the length I need to go around my head without having to undo it. There's that beading needle at the halfway point, and I'm ready to tie off. And this is the same with the embroidery floss, the dental floss, and the stretchy bead cord. You want to make an overhand knot. Left over right and under, right over left and under, pull tightly, and then secure the knot with the tiniest dot of super glue. Let it dry and then trim your ends, and your necklace is ready to wear.
Value never looks so good.